I'd like to talk a little bit today about looking at something which is a little basic for most of us, but something I've struggled with over the years, both from a networking management perspective and also from a local drive perspective. And what I want to talk about is creating and maintaining a directory structure for your information. As hard drives have become cheaper and less expensive, now you can pretty well pick up a terabyte drive for maybe $150, we really need to start thinking about how we store and manage all of our information digitally, either on our local drive or on our shared drive. And I'm just going to focus on local drive in terms of this discussion here. And so one of the first things to think about is when you install an operating system, what typically happens is that operating system tends to put files where it wants to put them as opposed to where you want to put them. So for example, if you go into the My Documents folder, there's an absolute and typical complete mishmash of different materials in that folder that to a large extent are hard to find, hard to manage, and hard to back up, because you may have, for instance, 3 different video software programs that store information in 3 different, My Videos files within your hard drive. And so one of the first principles is actually to create an area on a drive where you store all of your own data and you consciously decide where everything needs to be stored rather than having the operating system or the software decide. Now, this takes a little bit more effort sometimes. However, when you go to save something, because you can't choose automatically to think about where it wants to go, but it makes it very much easier to do that. So if we look at this situation here, there's a C drive and a D drive. And so what I've decided to do myself is isolate all my data in a folder called Brian D Data on my D drive. What this means is I have everything in here. It's easy to back up. It's easy to restore because I know exactly where it is. And in fact, in my Documents folder, if you let everything just go in there randomly, sometimes when you go to backup or restore, there's locked files that are sometimes hard to deal with. So anyway, let's just look at this. And now again, everybody's structure and the way they use this is going to be slightly different because you'll have information and things like that you use for different purposes. And so some of the reasons for some of these things are as follows. So one of my hobbies is music, and one of my hobbies is photographs, and I like to play around with video software. And so what I've done is I've actually used the My Documents naming theme, but my music would be all my music that I create myself, same with photos, and same with videos. And so that way, if I'm using a photo editing program or a video editing program or, one of my music editing programs, I save things in these files and I know exactly where they are. In terms of photos, a lot of us have a lot of photos, but a lot of us surprisingly don't have them backed up. One of the strategies is to look at, how do you actually name your photos and how do you put them in here so that they sort and you keep them in a way that is organized. So what I do is I take mine and I create a naming structure here that sorts. So 05 May 02 White Rock, so I know exactly in those photos what that folder refers to. I've got them in order by year, and so when I do backups, if I have a permanent backup of some of these older years, I generally just back up incrementally or mirror backup the current year. So again, makes it easy to back up, makes it easy to restore. Other related stuff, some of this is also tied to how the backup strategy actually works. So for instance, you'll see this file here, commercial music. So what I have in there are things that I've purchased, iTunes and MP3 files. These don't get backed up as often because even though I have a lot of iTunes, I generally don't buy that many per week. And so again, if I need to restore a computer, it makes it easier because I would typically just have to restore this once and just back it up occasionally. Other elements of this, so this is where I'll have all the web things that I deal with and the work things. So again, sorted in order and in a way that is meaningful to me. So just again, to reinforce this, be disciplined about how you do this, because there's nothing worse than having to try and find things if they're not organized. For instance, in my data, I think there's something like 75,000 files. And if you started to count up all of your files, your photos, your music, and everything else, you'd find that there are probably a lot more than you would typically think. And so, again, a good folder design structure is real critical to your own productivity and keeping things organized. I'm just going to go, there are some, if you do a Google search, you can find some examples of this. In fact, on the Microsoft site, they have a pretty good example of integrating your folders and creating a folder structure that makes sense. Anyway, hope that's been somewhat useful, and thanks very much for your time.